My name is Emily, and I'm 32 years old. I sat at the table with my mother-in-law, Patricia, in a restaurant I would never choose for myself. She insisted on coming here, calling it a family dinner, even though my husband, Thomas, didn't show up. That was typical for him. Patricia scanned the menu and ordered the most expensive dishes without a second thought. I quietly chose a simple meal, knowing I'd have to figure out how to manage the costs later. Patricia didn't know I covered most of her and Thomas's expenses because he gambled away his paycheck every month. She always looked down on me, calling me names like cheap or of ordinary, yet she had no idea how much I sacrificed. The tension grew as the waiter brought out the food. Patricia started making her usual comments, this time criticizing my blouse, saying it wasn't appropriate for a place like this. I stayed silent, swallowing my anger. When the bill came, Patricia leaned over and said loudly, "Oh, poor Emily. I'm sure you can't afford this place anyway." Everyone in the restaurant turned to look. My face burned with humiliation, but I didn't respond. Instead, I stood up, placed cash for my share on the table, and walked out without a word. As I stepped outside, I made a decision. I had been supporting this family for too long, and they didn't appreciate it. That night, everything changed. I decided I was done being treated this way. I would cut off their finances and leave. They could figure out how to manage without me. Little did they know, this was just the beginning of their problems and my new life. When I arrived home that night, Thomas was on the couch, staring at the television with a beer in his hand. He didn't even look up when I walked in. I dropped my purse on the table and stood in front of him. "We need to talk," I said firmly. "What now?" he replied, his eyes still glued to the screen. "I'm done. Done paying the bills, done covering for your gambling, and done with your mother's constant insults." He laughed bitterly. "You're overreacting, Emily. This is just how families work. You're part of this family, so you need to contribute." "Contribute?" I snapped. "I've been paying for everything while you blow your money at the casino. Your mother treats me like dirt, and you let her." "No more, Thomas. I'm moving out." That got his attention. He sat up, his expression changing. "You're not serious." "I've never been more serious," I said, grabbing my bag. "I'm going to my parents' house. Don't call me unless it's about the divorce." "Divorce?" His voice rose, but I didn't stay to argue. I walked out and drove to my parents' home, feeling a mix of fear and relief. I hadn't been there in years, but I knew it was the only safe place for me now. My parents welcomed me with open arms. My mom made me tea, and my dad gave me a hug, something I hadn't felt in months. For the first time in years, I felt supported. The next morning, I began cutting off Thomas and Patricia. I canceled the credit cards they used, stopped paying the utilities, and redirected my paycheck to a new account. I knew there would be consequences, but I was ready. 2 days later, Patricia called me. Her voice was sharp and angry. "What's going on, Emily?" "The credit card was declined, and the electric company says we owe money." "Fix this." "I'm not fixing anything, Patricia," I said calmly. "You'll have to figure it out yourself."
"How dare you?"
"After everything we've done for you," she yelled. "You mean the insults and humiliation? I've done enough. Goodbye, Patricia." I hung up and blocked her number. The calls didn't stop. Thomas left angry voicemails, blaming me for ruining the family, but I didn't care anymore. I had spent years supporting people who treated me like nothing. Now it was their turn to deal with reality. With Thomas and Patricia out of my life, I focused on rebuilding myself. I got a promotion at work and started saving for a small house of my own. My parents encouraged me every step of the way. One day, while going through old papers, I found something that shook me, a loan document with my name forged on it. Thomas had taken out a loan in my name months ago, without my knowledge. Furious, I contacted a lawyer and filed a case against him. In court, Thomas tried to deny everything, but the evidence was clear. He had not only stolen from me, but also gambled away every penny. The judge ruled in my favor, ordering him to repay the loan and sentencing him to community service for the forgery. Patricia showed up at the trial, pleading for Thomas. "He's still your husband," she said, as if that justified his actions. "Not anymore," I replied coldly. I've filed for divorce, and I'm never looking back. The court case was a turning point. Thomas and Patricia were left with nothing, and I finally felt free. Months later, I bought my own house. It was small but cozy, and most importantly, it was mine. I started a blog about financial independence and self-respect, sharing my story to help other women in similar situations. Looking back, I don't regret leaving Thomas and Patricia behind. They taught me a valuable lesson. You can't let others take advantage of you, no matter how much you care for them. Now, I'm living a life filled with peace, success, and the respect I deserve. For the first time in years, I'm truly happy. This is my fresh start. A few months later, while shopping for groceries, I ran into Patricia. She looked completely different, disheveled, wearing outdated clothes, and her usual confident demeanor was gone. For a moment, she froze, then approached me hesitantly. "Emily," she said, her voice softer than I'd ever heard it. I need to talk to you." I didn't want to engage, but curiosity got the better of me. "What do you want, Patricia?" asked, keeping my tone neutral. "It's Thomas," Patricia began, her hands trembling slightly. "He's in trouble, real trouble with some dangerous people. We need help." I raised an eyebrow, feeling a mix of anger and disbelief. "You mean the same Thomas who gambled away every dollar I earned? The same one who forged my name on a loan? Why should I help him?" She looked down, unable to meet my eyes. "I know we treated you badly. I know we don't deserve your help, but he's still your husband, ex-husband," I corrected her. "And no, Patricia, I won't help. I warned both of you what would happen if you kept living recklessly. This is the result of your choices." Patricia's face turned pale as I walked away. I didn't feel guilt, just a deep sense of justice. That night, I couldn't shake the encounter from my mind. Out of curiosity, I called my lawyer to check on Thomas's case. What I discovered shocked me. He had been arrested for trying to launder money to pay off his gambling debts. The court had also frozen Patricia's remaining assets because they were tied to Thomas's illegal activities. For years, I had been the one holding everything together, and now, without me, it was all falling apart. It was a bittersweet realization. With Thomas and Patricia out of my life for good, I decided to focus entirely on my blog and personal growth. The blog gained traction, and soon, women from all over the country were reaching out to me, sharing their stories of financial abuse and manipulation. One message stood out. A woman named Sarah wrote about how my story inspired her to leave a similar toxic relationship. Her words brought tears to my eyes. For the first time, I felt like my pain had a purpose. One day, I received a letter in the mail. It was from Thomas. Against my better judgment, I opened it. The letter was filled with apologies, excuses, and pleas for forgiveness. He wrote about how much he regretted everything and how his life had spiraled out of control. I read it once and then tossed it into the trash. Some wounds can heal, but trust, once broken, can never be the same. Years passed, and my life blossomed in ways I never imagined. I turned my blog into a full-fledged business, helping women become financially independent. I bought a bigger house and even started dating again, though I was in no rush. One day, as I was organizing an event for my blog community, my mom pulled me aside. "I'm so proud of you, Emily," she said. "You've turned what could have been the worst chapter of your life into something beautiful." Her words stayed with me. It wasn't just about surviving. It was about thriving, about finding strength in the hardest moments and using it to build a better future. I wasn't the same Emily who once sat at a table, quietly enduring insults. I was stronger, wiser, and finally free. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this: never let anyone take advantage of your kindness. Stand up for yourself, even when it's hard. And most importantly, don't be afraid to walk away from people who don't respect you. I'm Emily, and this is my story. It wasn't easy, but I found my voice, my strength, and my freedom. If I can do it, so can you. Life was finally settling into a peaceful rhythm, but as they say, life loves to test you when you least expect it. One day, while reviewing some blog-related emails, I received a surprising notification from the bank. My ex-husband, Thomas, had attempted to access an account I had closed years ago. Furious, I immediately called the bank. This account is closed, and I've already filed legal documentation against Thomas regarding financial fraud. How could this happen? The bank manager apologized profusely, explaining that Thomas had falsified new documents to gain access. They assured me they would launch an investigation and involve the authorities. It seemed Thomas hadn't learned his lesson, and this time, I wasn't going to let him walk away unscathed. A week later, I found myself in court again, facing Thomas. He looked disheveled, his once confident demeanor replaced by nervous energy. Patricia wasn't there to support him this time. Word had it that she had moved out of the state, unable to deal with the fallout of her son's actions. My lawyer presented irrefutable evidence of Thomas's attempt to gain access to my account. The judge didn't hold back in his ruling. Thomas was sentenced to 2 years in prison for forgery and identity theft. As the sentence was handed down, Thomas turned to me and muttered, "You've ruined my life." "No, Thomas," I said calmly. "You ruined it yourself." The ordeal with Thomas left me wary of trusting people again. For months, I focused solely on my business and personal goals. My blog grew into a platform that not only shared stories but also offered resources and financial planning tools for women. It felt good to know I was making a difference, but deep down, I wondered if I'd ever let myself open up to someone again. That changed when I met Daniel. He wasn't flashy or overly charming like Thomas had been. Instead, he was kind, steady, and genuine. He worked as a financial consultant and admired the work I was doing with my blog. We started as friends, and over time, our bond grew into something deeper. Daniel taught me that trust wasn't about forgetting the past, but about building something new, one step at a time. One evening, as I was wrapping up a virtual workshop, I received a message from an old friend. She mentioned that Patricia was back in town and living in a small apartment nearby. The news didn't stir much emotion in me. I had moved on, but a part of me was curious. A few days later, I saw Patricia at a local grocery store. She looked older, her usual sharpness replaced by weariness. She noticed me but didn't approach, and I decided to let her be. Some bridges weren't meant to be rebuilt. Years later, as I stood in front of an audience at a women's empowerment conference, I shared my story in full. I spoke about the humiliation, the betrayal, and the journey to reclaiming my life. The room was silent as I recounted the dinner where Patricia had humiliated me, calling me poor. "But here's the thing," I said, looking out at the audience. "That moment didn't define me. What defines you is how you rise after someone tries to break you." The audience erupted into applause, and I felt a deep sense of closure. I had turned my pain into power, my struggles into strength. Today, I live a life I once thought was impossible. My business thrives, my personal life is filled with love and trust, and I've helped countless women find their own strength. As for Thomas and Patricia, they're nothing more than memories now, a reminder of a life I left behind to create something better. And for that, I'll always be grateful. If this story has taught me anything, it's that letting go of toxic people is the first step to discovering your true worth. And trust me, it's worth every step.